They say you only understand value once it's gone. But what if losing everything isn't a tragedy? What if it's a kind of clarity? Every empire, every dynasty, every great fortune eventually meets the same moment, when the illusion of permanence shatters. And in that silence, after the markets crash or the banners fall, something strange happens. People see reality for the first time. Take Rome, for example. Its citizens believed their wealth was eternal. Gold poured in from conquered lands, grain from Africa, taxes from provinces stretched across continents. But as expansion slowed, Rome's wealth began to eat itself. The silver content in its coins dropped, prices soared, the rich hoarded, the poor starved, and the empire discovered that when faith in money collapses, so does the system built around it. Centuries later, America learned that lesson in its own way. In 1929, stock prices that seemed untouchable disintegrated in days. Fortunes made in a decade vanished in a week. What followed wasn't just a financial crash, it was a spiritual reckoning. People realized how fragile wealth becomes when it exists only in belief. Across time, collapse exposes what prosperity hides. Rome's marble, America's skyscrapers, both built on confidence, both crumbled when it disappeared. Because when the numbers fade and the vault's empty, only one currency remains, the wisdom of what really mattered all along. For most of history, gold was more than wealth. It was order. It anchored empires, stabilized kingdoms, and gave rulers the illusion that value could be controlled. But when you study the moments when civilizations began to fall apart, you often find one common thread: gold slipping quietly from their grasp. During the Second World War, nations measured their survival not just in soldiers or steel, but in gold reserves. Tons of it were shipped in secret, hidden in mountains, sunk at sea. As records show, when armies collapsed, so did vaults. Bars were stolen, melted, recast. The metal that once symbolized honesty became the currency of deceit. Switzerland's banks, neutral but deeply involved, handled billions in looted gold, moving it across borders under the guise of neutrality. After the war, much of it was never recovered. The physical proof that control is an illusion, even the powerful can't maintain forever. Then, in 1971, the illusion broke again. The United States, facing inflation and international pressure, ended the gold standard, detaching the dollar from its metal backing. Overnight, money ceased to be a promise of substance and became a matter of faith. And yet, markets barely paused. The world accepted the lie because it was convenient. Gold once represented discipline, but every age eventually trades discipline for comfort. And as history keeps reminding us, when comfort replaces restraint, collapse quietly waits at the door. Every financial system, no matter how sophisticated, is just a reflection of human nature. Markets rise on confidence and fall on doubt, the same emotions that built and broke empires long before the first stock exchange existed. The truth is simple, yet devastating. The economy doesn't crash. People do. Look at the South Sea bubble of the 18th century. Investors poured money into promises of infinite profit. Shares rose by fantasy alone. Ships were never built, goods never traded. When the illusion finally collapsed, the same crowd that once shouted with greed now screamed for justice. History repeated the same cycle centuries later, during the dot-com bubble, and again with cryptocurrency frenzies. The pattern never changes, because the mirror never lies. Markets expose what people truly worship. When faith moves from work to speculation, from value to velocity, collapse becomes inevitable. You can't build stability on collective excitement. You can only delay the reckoning. But there's a paradox. After every crash, after every panic, something valuable remains. Perspective, a sense of proportion, the kind of humility that can't be bought, only learned. The survivors of the Great Depression often lived the rest of their lives differently. They saved quietly, spent wisely, and trusted slowly. The market, like history, doesn't punish greed out of cruelty. It does so out of correction. Every loss is a warning, every cycle is a lesson, and every generation forgets it just long enough to repeat it. Every collapse leaves behind wreckage, but also clarity. After the noise fades and the ledgers close, What's left is the opportunity to rebuild with honesty. History doesn't just record loss, it records rebirth. When the Great Depression ended, America didn't simply recover economically, it transformed culturally. A generation that had known hunger redefined success, not by luxury, but by stability. The same thing happened in Japan after the Second World War. Reduced to ashes, the nation rebuilt itself not through conquest or speculation, but through craftsmanship, discipline, and patience. Factories rose where bomb craters had been. Saving became a virtue, excess, a sin. Within a few decades, Japan turned scarcity into strength, proving that sometimes ruin is just renewal in disguise. Even in personal stories, the pattern repeats. Business founders who lose everything often describe their second ventures as humbler, but wiser. Without the illusion of invincibility, they see risk differently, time differently, people differently. What once felt like an ending becomes the start of understanding. This is the hidden mercy of collapse. It strips away the unnecessary until only truth remains. You learn that growth without principle is just noise, and wealth without restraint is just weight. Every empire, every market, every life must one day fall, not as punishment, but as a reminder. The ashes are not the end. They are the beginning of something far more enduring: wisdom. When everything collapses, money, power, plans, what remains isn't nothing. It's everything we forgot to notice. History, at its core, isn't the story of wealth gained or lost. It's the story of what endures when the numbers disappear. When Rome finally fell, the marble crumbled, the coins lost meaning, but something survived: its ideas. Architecture, law, language, these outlasted the empire's wealth. When Germany faced ruin after the war, the currency was worthless, but discipline, education, and innovation rebuilt it. When markets crash today, the same pattern repeats. Belief returns to what can't be printed: skill, knowledge, character. The irony of collapse is that it restores proportion. It reminds us that value was never in the vault, but in the hands and minds of those who built it. When you lose everything, you discover what wealth was meant to protect: not comfort, but capacity. Every empire that rose on arrogance ended in silence, but every civilization that rose again did so with humility. They learned that abundance without gratitude is blindness, and that the only wealth immune to inflation is understanding. Perhaps that's the real secret: to let go before life forces you to measure success not by what you can accumulate, but by what you can endure without losing yourself. Because when the markets fade, when the coins rust, when history forgets your name, what remains is how wisely you lived through the rise and how gracefully you walked through the fall. If this gave you a new way to see value, beyond wealth, beyond numbers, share it and subscribe. The next time the markets shake, remember, losing everything isn't the end. It's often the beginning of understanding what really matters.